Greetings and salutations, everyone. I hope everyone is doing well today. Today I have a very exciting upload to share with you. Before we get into today's upload, though, a couple links I'd like to share. As you know, I rely on my Patreon, my PayPal, and my merch store to help the channel to continue to grow and go. Those links are in the description below. Also, Dogman Frightening Encounters, Volume 1, 2, and 3, the audiobook version. They were written by Tom Lyons, narrated and produced by me, Jeffrey Nadolny. They're available on Audible, Amazon, and iTunes. The links to those audiobooks are in the description as well. Now, everyone, I've taken enough of your time. Let's get on with today's upload. Shall we? Today's first part of the upload. The reason why I'm sharing this, in case you guys have heard it before on the channel, is because for the last week or two I've been checking out some comments, and a lot of people think there is a Dogman UFO connection. And I honestly believe that everything that is unexplained or paranormal has a connection. So I just thought it kind of fit today. The UFO phenomenon seems to be really getting everywhere. It's associated with Sasquatch sightings, bizarre entities that would otherwise be called demons, and now, seemingly, the nightmarish Dogman that supposedly haunts the forests of North America. It was early June of 2016 in southern New York, and three friends, Jamie, Dan, and an unnamed witness, decided to go camping on a mountain. Apparently, they didn't know if they were technically allowed to do this, but there were fire pits in the area, so they did it anyway. They set up their tent and got their fire going, and just sat there having a few beers, bitching about their girlfriends. All of a sudden, the woods became completely silent. You couldn't even hear the crickets anymore. And it apparently felt like there was a lightning storm because static electricity could be felt through the air. The hairs on the back of the unnamed witness's neck stood up. According to Jamie, the air was humming. Immediately after this, there was a deep bass noise, and a light flashed up into the distance and illuminated the whole forest. It looked like there was a really big firework exploding in the first few seconds, but it lasted for about a minute before it split up into 3 or 4 other lights and shot back down into the trees. We could see the lights glowing out in the woods, and then there was a big gust of wind and it was gone. Everything smelled like it had rained, but it never did. The witnesses didn't know what to do, but decided that it was likely just a meteor, and so they went talking amongst themselves again. At about 2 in the morning, they decided to go to sleep. The unnamed witness and Jamie slept in the tent, but Dan, he decided to sleep by the fire. Roughly an hour later, the witness was woken up by Dan, shaking them, saying there was something big watching the camp. The creature was about 50 feet away from the fire, according to Dan, and he apparently thought it might be a bear, but it was standing on 2 legs and bobbing backwards and forwards, as if to try to get a better look. While Dan was talking to the witnesses about this, all 3 of them heard a loud scream that apparently sounded like a pig being slaughtered, but was deeper and made the witnesses' ears ring. Apparently, 3 or 4 more creatures came running toward the campsite, as the embers from the fire kicked up and landed on the tent. The Dogmen kept running to the tent and then promptly running back to the woods. Every once in a while, one of them would scream again and pull on one of the tent poles, dragging the whole tent a foot or 2. By now, the whole tent was collapsed on one side, and the witnesses were screaming as loud as they could. Suddenly, everything went quiet again, and the witness ran toward their truck as fast as they could and hit the gas. When they were just about to leave, they saw one of the Dogmen illuminated in the road by the headlights. At this point, the witnesses attempted to gun it and drive the vehicle straight past the creature, but it straightened up and puffed out its chest. The witness estimates that the creature was around 8 feet tall and had dark gray hair all over its body, except for the front, where the hair was white or yellow. The face looked like that of a dog, but not really. Apparently, the witness knows what Bigfoot looks like, and this was different. The Dogman didn't move when the witness drove at it, and they had to swerve the truck to avoid running it over. They drove back down the mountain, parked the truck in a gas company's parking lot. They considered telling the local police, but were discouraged because they didn't know if they were allowed to camp there and had been drinking. In the morning, after the witnesses had sobered up, they drove back to the campsite to find their property had vanished, including the tent and cooler. Today's second part of the upload. This happened a few years ago at my parents' house in a small town of Wayne County, New York. Anyone who knows this area knows that some parts are very rural. Well, my parents live right in town, not far from the center of it, but in a weird spot. The town only has maybe 500 people in the town limits, and it's surrounded by farmland and forest. They live right near the railroad tracks and canal, and their backyard is pitch black at night, because the streetlights don't reach back there. The yard backs up to a walking trail in woods. It's actually pretty creepy back there after dark, even though it's only 2 blocks from downtown. The night this experience takes place, it was extremely dark. I think it was a new moon or a moonless night, and it was overcast to boot. Late summer or early fall, so it was pretty dry, no mud to capture footprints. My parents, brother, and I were talking in the living room at the front of the house, the part of the house facing town and light. The house is kind of long and skinny, maybe 30 to 40 feet wide, but 120 to 150 feet long. As we were talking, the family dog stands up, looks around, and starts to growl really low. He's a yellow lab, about 90 pounds, half deaf and blind from diabetes. Overall, he's a really chill dog. He'd never bark at other dogs and rarely barks at people. That's what made this so odd. His hackles go up and he starts barking towards the back of the house. There's at least 2 closed doors before you can even get to the room where the back door is. The dog is now on full berserk mode, barking at the closed door in the hallway. We opened it and followed him to see why he was going nuts. We got to the door to the back room, and now we're worried someone had broken in when we opened it. Marley shot straight to the back door, jumping and barking and snarling, making sounds I've never heard this big baby of a dog make. I opened the back door and he tried to bolt out. He was going to attack whoever or whatever was out there. My parents and I step onto the back porch and close Marley inside. He sounds almost rabid. We wait a second for our eyes to adjust because the backyard is pitch black. We see a silhouette maybe 40 to 50 feet away, standing at the edge of the yard, right near the railroad track access road. Now, to say this thing is big is an understatement. It was way over 6 feet tall, probably closer to 7.5 to 8, extremely broad. I'd think it was a potential burglar that we caught sneaking up to the house if it wasn't so massive. My parents to this day swear it was a black bear. Officially, according to DEC, black bears don't live anywhere near this area and haven't for a long time. Also, the size of it would have been a record-sized bear. Also, the reaction of my dog going nuts doesn't seem like what a bear would do. After we had put Marley inside, it just stood there, upright, for about 2 minutes before we decided it was best to go inside as the hairs on the back of our neck were standing up. The reason it freaked me out so bad was even at the distance, you could hear it breathing, deep, raspy breaths. It sounded like it was breathing right next to my ear. They were slow and steady, not like someone who was out of breath. It wasn't like they were trying to make their breath sound loud, it just was. I immediately went to find a flashlight, but when I got back outside, whatever it was gone. No tracks, no fur, just a huge silhouette that was too big to be a person, but acted unlike any wild animal I've ever encountered. The spot with the cars was where we saw it, back where the weeds started. If you go a couple miles in either direction on the railroad tracks, you can get to the woods. I've heard theories of creatures using power lines as highways of sort. I'm thinking in this area they may have used the railroad tracks to move between towns without being seen. At night it's dark and there rarely is anyone out there. At the time, I believe it was a lot more overgrown. I think Google Earth got pictures of it in the spring, before everything was grown up. I think my parents want to believe it was a black bear because they still live there. We've never had any bear encounters before or after this. Today's third part of the upload. This experience happened 4 years ago. To this day, I keep wondering what happened to my sister. It was wintertime in the suburbs of Northern Virginia. I live with my family in a neighborhood not far from Washington, D.C., so it's not to say we are in the middle of nowhere. Although our home is very close to a few decently large wooded parks. One night I was at my then-girlfriend's place up near the city. I get a call from my sister around 7 p.m., which in wintertime makes it pretty much dark. I didn't think anything about it. Usually she calls me for random things she needs insight on. A bit about my sister. Ever since she was little, she loved horror movies. Growing up with her, I can tell you firsthand she is not easily scared. She loves the paranormal. So, back to the call. I pick up the phone. First thing I realize is her voice is breaking up. She's sobbing, and I could barely hear her talk. Instantly, my mind started rushing with horrible thoughts of what could have happened. She kept telling me to come home as soon as possible. I asked her why. Is everything okay? She wouldn't say. She just kept asking me to come home. Obviously, I got in my car and rushed home. The neighborhood is very dim. There aren't many lights, only a few solar-powered garden lamps from surrounding homes. As soon as I got home, I ran inside and asked her again what happened. And she finally started explaining. About half an hour before she called me, she went outside to grab a few things from her car. Again, it was dark out, but the car is unlocked and the headlights turned on. When she opened the door to the car, the light was shining from the driveway to the roof of the garage. She noticed it first from the inside of the car. A short, bipedal, human-looking thing standing on two jet-black muscular legs. At first she said she thought it was a raccoon, but this would have been obvious to her. But this thing, it scared her to the point of crying while she was in the car. Her view was obstructed from the rest of the creature, which was crouching. And from what she described, it was scratching at something on the roof, trying to get in. Maybe, but she wasn't going to stick around to find out. She got out of the car pretending not to have spotted it. This thing, it acted in a seemingly intelligent way. She thought, maybe if I act like I didn't see it, it will just stay up there and try not to attack me or anything. But as she walked behind the car, she heard it stand up. Startled, she looked directly at it. The whole description, as she told it to me. Jet black, long arms, legs, 5-digit hands, claws, dreaded looking, very dirty fur or hair covering its head and body. The face was what was disturbing. The face had 2 shiny yellow eyes that glowed from the car's headlights. No nose, just 2 slits. And a very wide mouth with no lips. She took off when she made eye contact. As soon as she was indoors, she called 911 and an officer was dispatched to our house. He looked around back and tried to see if there was any damage or sign of someone climbing on the roof. No footprints, no damage. It was all in place. The officer just told us to lock the doors and windows and left. It's not like my sister to be terrified to the point of calling the police. Whatever this thing was, though, I can only imagine what it was actually like to witness something like that in real life. To this day, both me and her get extremely uneasy arriving home after dark. Today's fourth part of the upload. This happened a few years ago, and I've been scared of being called crazy for what I saw, but I need to get this off my chest. I live in the outskirts of a small town on the California Central Coast. I used to frequently go on walks in the middle of the night to clear my head, and had to run into all sorts of animals, coyotes, deer, owl. On this particular night, the coastal fog had not set in. My visibility was perfect. There's a school not far from where I live, so I love to just sit on the swings and think. I saw what I thought were 2 deer in the field and ignored them for the most part, continuing to listen to Joe Rogan yell about something. There was something odd about one of the deer, though. It had antlers. It wouldn't have been weird, but it was early January. At this point, I was weirded out, but I got scared when I realized the eye placement. The eyes were facing forward. They weren't on the side of its head like a deer. Then I realized something else. The body was humanoid. Long arms, very long legs. Arms that could dismember a person, a slender torso, and powerfully lanky legs. I wasted no time running. I ran the complete mile back to my house and didn't stop for anything. I got home and prayed the rosary. I don't know if I saw a demon or some perversion of nature, but I know it shook me to the core. Today's 5th part of the upload. Experience 1. I was 8 years old living in Hopkinsville, Kentucky. It was the summer of 2012, and it was a hot one. One summer night I woke up at around 11:30, 12 o'clock, and I was sweating like hell, so I walked over to the window and cracked it. That's when I saw something in the tree line by our stocked pond. We owned no animals other than a small terrier, but the previous owners were commercial farmers. I watched for about 5 minutes before it emerged, and when it did I was horrified. It was a wolf-like creature about 6 to 7 feet tall and partially covered in dark gray hair that shone in the light of the full moon. It walked out on 2 legs, then quickly dropped onto all 4 and ran the 100 or so yards to the stocked pond in a mere second. It drank for a while, stood up on 2 legs again, and I got a really good look at it. The thing was horrible looking. The fur was all patchy, very skinny, and it looked like it was covered in some kind of injuries. Years later, when I saw the 3rd Harry Potter movie for the first time, I saw the werewolf, and that was almost exactly what it looked like. It then took off across the old cornfield into the woods on the other side. I've heard stories of creatures, but never really believed them until that night. I heard a week later, while out around town with my folks, that there had been an attack at a nearby farm. 3 hogs and 1 horse had been eaten and ripped to shreds. That was my first but not last encounter with a dogman. My second experience, I caught a glimpse of the thing constantly ever since the first one, but never got another good look at the one until the fall of 2015, a month before we moved to Maine. It was dusk and I was outside with some of my friends playing with our Nerf guns as boys do. Those were the good old days. Anyway, after a while we got bored and started a fire. We told dirty jokes and laughed for a while. But then we started hearing noises in the woods, and the laughter died down. We all retreated to the woodshed and armed ourselves with axes, pitchforks, and the like before returning to the fire. About 10 minutes later, something rustled in the woods about 20 yards behind us. But no one dared to look and see what the hell it was. Finally, my friend Jeremy turned around to take a look, and the scream he let out could have brought down a barn roof. That's when we all turned around and saw one of them. Except this one was much taller. I'd say 8.5 to 9 feet. It was pure muscle and gray fur. It was on all 4 sniffing around the barn, but when Jeremy screamed, the thing looked at us, stood up on 2 legs, and snarled. That's when my dad came out of the house with his shotgun and screamed, "What in God's name is going on?" We all just pointed and screamed. Then he looked at it and said, "Go on, get!" and shot at it twice. It ran into the woods yelping, as I think my dad had shot it. And we all went inside and locked the doors. My dad sat in his chair with the shotgun the whole night, and I swore I could hear the thing scratching along the house until daylight. Turns out when we went outside the next morning, there were claw marks all over the side of the house. After that, everything was quiet until we moved, and I've never seen anything like that since. Alright guys, I hope you enjoyed today's upload as much as I enjoyed sharing it with you. I want to thank everybody for all of the support, and I really do appreciate it. I'm still looking into some more unanswered animal attacks, media cover-ups. I'm hoping that the more videos I do, someone may take notice and, at least contact me, tell me to stop. That way I know I'm on point of this, because I really do feel like I am. And if they do contact me, I'm not gonna stop. I know that sounds stupid, but I'm not gonna stop until we have answers. And that's what we need, is answers. No matter who it's from, who unsolves this puzzle. So with that, I'm going to bid you all farewell. Thank you, and see ya!